So I spent the entirety of July in Switzerland, and I did it through this program called WWOOFing, WWOOF. WWOOFing stands for Worldwide Organizations of Organic Farms, and it's really been one of the greatest experiences I've done in my life, really. It's been really nice to travel Switzerland on the weekends while we're not working or volunteering and just see some of the amazing views that Switzerland has. Like, we've been to some of the greatest lakes that I've ever been to in my life. And we also climbed to the top of Santis, which is the highest peak in the Alpstein Mountains. I have to say that's pretty impressive to me. Definitely one of the hardest hikes I've ever done in my life, but absolutely worth it. Every experience that I've had while I've been in Switzerland has been so worth it, and I'm just so grateful for my time here. When you're first looking into the WWOOFing experience, I think that you should start looking 3 to 4 months in advance because there are a lot of options, but also these options get really filled up, especially if you're going in the summer when it's like the hotspot time for everybody to go and do something and get out of their ordinary routine, you know? So I would say definitely look 3 to 4 months in advance so that way you can get the best accommodation for you. We started looking about 2 months in advance, and a lot of the ones that we wanted were already like closed off, but luckily we got this amazing one that we've been at for the past month. So just start looking early if you can. Once you found the farms you like, you will send in a little note about who you are and what you are looking for out of your experience, and they will likely respond within a few days or maybe even weeks depending on who your host is, and they will say whether or not you are a good fit for it, and then from there you will go on to talk and ask your questions and you'll exchange emails, and it's often really good to FaceTime or Skype with them just so you can get a feel of what like their energy is like as well. I think that really helped with us for going here and making sure that we were comfortable going to the place that we were going because we were able to FaceTime with our host and she seemed really nice and she gave great energy through the phone. I think this is better than emailing sometimes because sometimes with emails, you know, you just kind of get the professional answers and things like that, but you don't really see what the energy is through the phone. So I would definitely recommend FaceTiming or Skyping with your host before you go, before you even agree to anything. FaceTime and ask as many questions as you need to ask. Questions that you should ask your host: where you'll be sleeping, what the accommodation looks like if they have pictures, how many meals are going to be included, is laundry included, what's the transportation like, how much is the transportation, what your work schedule will be like, what the days off will include, if there will be other people on the property, if there will be other woofers, and any other questions that you think is necessary. If you have any specific needs that you need met, you need to ask your host right then and there before you agree to anything. You don't want to walk into a situation where you need something and you're not able to be accommodated by that by your host, and once you get there, you're screwed. Also, before going to your stay and the community farm that you're staying on, you want to make sure that you save up money just in case anything happens. Now, this is a cheaper alternative to traveling the normal way, but you want to have some backup money in your pocket just in case anything happens. If you go out for a weekend and get stranded somewhere, if you need to stay in a hotel, if your accommodation isn't working out for you and you need to leave, you need to have some money to set yourself up right. So I would just say definitely keep that in mind, and the amount of money you should have as emergency is really going to depend where you are and how expensive things are there. Because for here in Switzerland, I made sure I had about $1,000 saved up just in case anything happened, which I barely even needed to touch it, which is a great thing for me. But in other places you might need to spend some money, so just keep that in mind, and also research how expensive things are, how expensive hotels would be. Have a backup plan. You should always have a backup plan for something like this because you are kind of walking into it with blind eyes, and as much questions as you ask, you really don't know what you're getting yourself into, especially if you're a first timer, and that's okay. That's a part of the fun of it, but just make sure you have a backup plan just in case. When woofing and traveling, I think it's actually, I don't know. I'm somebody who likes to have a really thought out, scheduled type of plan, and we try to, my friend Evan and I really tried to have a thought out plan of what we were going to do on the weekends when we had off. We had a plan that we were going to take a 3-day weekend and go out to Italy. But that ended up not happening because we got so many recommendations of things that we should do in Switzerland, and it worked out for the best for us. We actually got a Swiss pass while we were here for the transportation, and we got all buses and trains for free within the pass, and it was $300 for the entire month, which this may seem like a lot to you, but in turn, the amount of times that we've traveled over the weekend, it was so worth it because each train ticket costed about $10, and we took about 6 trains in one day. So just try to have an open mind because you might be doing something that you didn't think you were going to be doing. For example, we went into Zurich one weekend because one of the co-workers here asked us if we would come help cater for a party, and it ended up being one of the best parties I've ever been to, and such a fun experience. I met some super cool people. We ended up hanging out with them the entirety of the next day and really just going with the flow. Sometimes this is really just the best experience you can have, and it's good to have an open mind and to just flow with the plans. I would 100% definitely recommend downloading the maps for where you want to go over the weekend while you are at your stay. I personally did not want to buy a SIM card for while I was out of the country. I just didn't feel like it was necessary, and I really wanted to be more off-grid and not have my phone attached to my hip 24/7. So I didn't do that, and for me it's $10 a day to turn on my data, but I didn't want to do it as often as I could have. So instead, I made sure I downloaded the maps for where we wanted to go over the weekend and made sure that we had a solid plan and were able to find our way back to our stay once we were done. Now, sometimes, yes, we did go out of the way and kind of went off plan, but that was okay because I had a map that allowed me to be able to find my way back home, and there were a lot of people here that spoke English that were able to help guide and direct us in the way that we needed to go. Don't be deterred from going to a different country because of the language barrier. Now, it is good to, if you're going somewhere that speaks a completely different language, it is good to learn a little bit of the language so you can get yourself by. Even just like simple little words like, hi, how are you? How do I get to XYZ? Things like that. That will be really helpful. But for us, we were okay in Switzerland not knowing any German, and we learned a few words while we were here, but the German language is extremely hard to learn. But that being said, don't think that you need to know a bunch of languages to be able to woof. You can go anywhere in the world, and once you talk to your host, especially if your host speaks English, you will be able to find your way around. I think one of the best things about traveling is actually being able to interact with people and have a fun time without even understanding each other. You learn from people as much as they learn from you. So as we've been here, we've been teaching people English, and they've been teaching us German words. So it's been really nice to have that kind of interaction and be surrounded by people who are very open-minded. This may not be everywhere you go, but this was my experience, and I would have to say, it's one of the best things that I have had at this experience. Write down emergency numbers. Make sure you have the number of your stay and the emergency numbers of the country that you're going to. We got when we arrived to Switzerland, we were supposed to meet at a train station and be picked up by our host, and we both didn't have our data on, and we could not reach our host by any means necessary. So we had to ask one of the workers at the SBB transportation services to call our host for us, and she was really helpful, and she helped us out, and we got in contact with our host. But just make sure you have that number saved, so that way if anything happens, you're able to reach who you need to reach. Everybody's work schedules are going to be different. We worked 5 days a week for 6 hours a day, and then we got the weekends off. Well, we actually got Sundays and Mondays off, which worked out really well for us because Mondays were actually a lot less busy for hikes and things that we wanted to do, whereas Sundays were a lot busier. Sundays, everything is closed in Switzerland for the most part. The necessary services are open, but most of like the fun recreational things are closed on Sundays. So we spend a lot of our Sundays outdoors, which is great. You will likely have time off to be able to travel and explore, and I definitely recommend taking as much time out of that as you can. Yes, you're going to need rest days to recover and rejuvenate, but definitely take the time to explore and be open-minded while you're woofing. This isn't something to come and just sit in a house and be on your phone. I mean, if that's what it is for you, that's great. But to get the best out of this experience, you should be open-minded and just go out and explore. You really see so many different things. I remember one night me and Evan actually had to walk 2.5 hours from the train station because our bus stopped running in the town that we were staying in. Mind you, the bus ride is a 15-minute bus ride, but it was a 2.5-hour walk in the dark because we got back after the bus was scheduled. So definitely know when the buses stop running, know when the trains stop running in the area that you're going to. Make sure you have an understanding of the transportation before you just go out willy-nilly and get yourself lost. Uber is not the same out here. So that's all the tips I have from my first woofing experience. I would definitely say I would do this again, 100%. I don't know where I would go next, but there's so many options to do and explore. So take everything I said with a grain of salt, and just remember that your experience will be different than my experience, and I hope the best for you. Definitely let me know if you have woofed before or if you are going to look into woofing, because it really truly was the time of my life. If you like this video, like, comment, and subscribe down below. Please let me know if you're thinking about doing woofing. If you've ever done woofing, I would love to hear your experiences. Or if this video makes you end up doing it, please come back and let me know about your experience. I would love to hear it. Thanks. Bye, guys.